Hello you all everyone. This is Mr. Brown. I'm actually checking in with you guys to show you guys what I'll be making today. Today I'll be making a Jello classic cheesecake. For all of you all at home that will decide to make this is a real simple and easy way to make this. It doesn't require us putting anything in the oven. The only thing we'll be using is our milk. We'll be using our 2 packets that come inside of the box, which is the filler as well as the crust. We'll be using a bit of Splenda instead of using the regular sugar, and we'll also be using 1 stick of butter. Now, pay attention, this thing about the butter, this butter has no salt. So all of these things you can find at your local store, your local Family Dollar store, or your local dollar store when purchasing. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have on gloves, because we don't want to make too much of a mess, especially in the kitchen here at Rim Kids. I'm working in the kitchen, y'all. So you know how Miss Judy is about this kitchen. She don't want anybody in this kitchen messing it up. So I'm going to make sure I put on my gloves before I start preparing myself to do anything. Once I have on my gloves, the first things first, I'm going to start with the crust. In order to make a pie and in order to do this correctly, I would actually have to start off with the crust. So if I'm looking at the ingredients on the box, it's telling me that I should take the crust and I should pour it in my pan. I have this little pan here that I'll be making everything in. So I'm going to pour the crust inside here. Once I pour the crust inside there, the next step I'll be making is I'll be adding sugar. I'll be adding sugar with a bit of butter. So what I'm going to do with this crust is I'm going to pour this crust down in there. If y'all can see, I'm going to take that crust, and as you see, I poured the crust down in there inside the pot. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get my Splenda, and I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of Splenda. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my spoon and I'm going to make sure that I manage my 2 tablespoons of Splenda. Being that I'm using Splenda in a pack, I actually just opened up 2 packs of Splenda and I just poured it on my spoon just to make 2 tablespoons. Now this is 1. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the tablespoon and I'm just going to let it drop in there. I'm going to take another 2 packs of Splenda and I'm going to create my 2nd tablespoon of Splenda. Remember, it's 2 tablespoons of Splenda. So I'm going to take that and I'm just going to pour that on the spoon and pour it right there into my mixing pan. Once I got my 2 tablespoons of Splenda, I'm just going to look back at this just to confirm that I'm doing everything right. So I just added my 2 tablespoons of Splenda, and the next move is to make sure that I add some butter. Now this is the butter that I'll be adding. It tells me how much butter do I need to add. It tells me I need to add 4 tablespoons of butter or margarine. I need to melt this butter. So the only thing I'll be using to heat something up is the microwave. So if you guys would like to walk over with me, we're going to walk over to the microwave. I'm going to find something to put this butter in so that I can melt it. Alright, so once I get my butter inside of a cup that I can put inside of the microwave to melt it, I'm going to take this butter and I'm going to put it on maybe 1 minute. Now the thing about butter is it doesn't take butter a long time to melt, so you have to be careful with butter, because sometimes when you melt the butter it may pop all over the microwave and then you just have extra work to do. You find yourself cleaning up the microwave. What we're going to do here is once the butter finished, we're going to take that butter and we're going to take 4 teaspoons of the butter and we're going to place it inside of our crust. Because the most important thing about the crust is we don't want the crust to be too loose, because the crust needs to be hard to hold our cheesecake as we cut it. Because if your cheesecake crust too hard, I'm going to talk about you. I'm telling everybody, yeah, I went by her house and she had soggy cheesecake. Soggy cheesecake. So as I finish, I got my butter. My butter is melted, as you can see. I'm going to take my 4 teaspoons of butter and I'm just going to pop them in there. That's 1. Count with me. That's 2. That's 3. And the last teaspoon of butter is going to be 4. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start preparing myself with my gloves on. I'm going to take the phone with me just a little bit so you guys can see this. I'm going to start preparing myself with my gloves on, as you see that, and I'm going to just start taking my crust and mashing it on through there. And I'm starting to mash my crust all through there. just to start preparing myself to get this crust inside of the pan. Now, like I said, I don't want the crust to be too hard. I don't want the crust to be too soft. I just want the crust to be just right, so when I take it and I put it on this pan here, and I mash it down, it could sit perfect on my pan. All right. Let me show y'all how to do it. That boy from Louisiana, so you know he can cook. All right. So the next thing, after I finish mashing my crust through the pan, your crust should look somewhat like this. It will start getting a little tough. Sometimes if your crust is a little too soft, you just take that butter you have there and just pour a little bit more butter on top of it. As you continue to mash it and move it around in that pan, your crust will actually become like a solid base, like a clay dough. So as you keep on and you're taking that crust and you're just mashing it through there, that crust becomes a solid clay dough. You take that crust and you start putting it on your pan. I'm going to put the crust in the pan, and then I'm going to show you all after I put the crust in the pan. So the crust is inside the pan right now. As I get the crust in the pan, I'm just going to start mashing it and preparing to set it up just how I want my pie. I want to eat my pie with the crust all on top. I want my pie to taste delicious. I want my pie to be like no other. And I'm just mashing it. See how I'm mashing that in there? And I'm using my hand. I took one of the gloves off so that I could hold the pan real tight, and I didn't want a chance of slipping on me. So I'm taking that crust and I'm just mashing it on down in there. You see how we doing that there? After I finish mashing it down, I'm just going to make sure that it's all spread out good and even, because I don't want my crust to be thick on one side and thin on the other side, because you know what? I plan on eating this cheesecake. And I'm going to give everybody a piece in the building. And I want everybody to say, oh yeah, he made it. He's from New Orleans. He know how to cook. Even if you don't know how to cook, this is just an easy way to making a cheesecake. And just as I said, this don't even take us putting it in the oven. We can make this at home. We can make this for our nieces, our nephews, our grandkids. And all we have to do is pop it in the refrigerator once we finish. Or like I would say, the ice box. We call everything down in New Orleans the ice box. So once I'm finished mashing that down to the pan, look how perfect I mashed that down. That's just how you would do your crust in the pan. You will make sure you take your time and you be fancy about it, because you want to be sophisticated with your cheesecake. You want it to look really nice. Even though it's an instant cheesecake, you want everybody to think you didn't put it in the oven and you didn't bake it and you sweating like I'm sweating for no reason. I don't know why. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take this pan and we're just going to rinse it out. I'm just going to go over to the sink and I'll be right back in a second. I'm going to rinse it out because I don't want this stuff to get on the filling of my cheesecake. So I'm over here at the sink and I'm rinsing this little pan out. Once my pan is rinsed out, I'm going to start the next process of making my cheesecake. So I'm just going to go over the box. It tells me after I finish my crust, I did my crust, everything is prepared in the box. It tells me to use the filling, which is here. I'm going to put this filling in the bowl, and I'm going to mix in 1 1/3 cup of cold milk. So I'm going to take this filling just as I did the crust, but I did rinse the bowl out so that there's no crust in here. And I'm going to take this filling and I'm going to pour it right there in the bowl. And I'm going to shake it in there good because I want all my filling in there. Yes, Lord. Okay, I'm going to make sure I have my fork available because this is going to be my little mixing stick. I got my milk available. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the milk here. And I'm going to take this milk home because it don't make no sense for the rest of this way. I can eat this with some cornflakes. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just as the instructions told me, to make sure that I fill up 1.5 cups of milk. Because the thing about it, if you put too much milk in there, your filling will be a little too soupy. It could be too watery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this coffee mug, and because I understand measurements, I'm going to try my best to fill it up 1.5 cups. So that's about 1.5 cups right here. I'm going to take it and I'm going to pour it in there. And what I'm going to start doing next is beating my filling. I'm going to store it until it ain't have no life in it. When I say I'm going to store this up until it just can't be stored no more, I'm gonna store it, and it forms up just like you will be making a custard. You know how you will make a custard pie? As you continue to store and store and store, you have to make sure that how the substance is good and stored in there. So you might have to store it around for a while. And it looks like banana pudding. Now, if I had some bananas, I'd throw some bananas in there, and we'll be eating a cheesecake banana slash, I don't know. You know, people from New Orleans like to make up stuff. So I'm going to take that fork and I'm going to continue to store it around, store it around, store it around. I actually like the spoon a little better, so because the spoon kind of grabs and it helps you pick it up, and you can lift it up, you can bat it all around, and make sure that we get a good store. Now the most important thing about this is making sure we store it, because once we put this in an ice box, which I called the refrigerator the first time, which is the proper name for it, we're going to put this in the refrigerator and we're going to let it cool off. Now once this cool off, they're going to swear to God that I went to Kroger's and got this cheesecake, or maybe the Cheesecake Factory or something like that. But I'm about to mix this cheesecake up. Now y'all stop laughing over them, because this is going to be really, really good. And it's sad that you guys can't taste a piece. Alright, oh, my if fell out, so I'm just going to continue to mix. Once I got it good and mixed, my next task will be is we're going to take this pie, which is the crust right here, and we're going to take it and we're going to pour it right down in there. I'm pouring it from the top so you guys will see it dropping from the top. And I'm just going to pour it right down on top of my pie. As I pour it right down on top of my pie, I'm going to make sure I get every bit of this out of this bowl, because they really don't give you a lot at the dollar store. So I'm just making sure that I get every bit of my little cheesecake out of here. Alright. And once it's poured in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my spoon on top of it, and I'm just going to level it on out. Level it on out to my crust. I'm going to level it on out to my cheesecake. Oh, that looks so good right now, y'all. I'm going to level it on out. See how I'm doing that? And I'm leveling it on out, and I'm just making sure that my cheesecake is just all leveled and it's not thin on one side and thick on the other. I'm making sure that each side is all leveled out to where I have a good, delicious tasting cheesecake. Now once I'm finished with all this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this cheesecake and I'm going to pop it in the refrigerator. Now I do advise you all, before popping this cheesecake in the refrigerator, you're just going to take your hand, make sure that you're the only one in the kitchen. Oh, it's good. Then you got to take off that glove, because you don't want nobody to know that you didn't taste a little bit of it. Voila. This is my finishing cheesecake, y'all. It's going to be delicious. I should write my name on it, but I'm not. What I'm going to do next is take this and pop it inside of the refrigerator, which is the ice box, and I'm going to let it sit for a while. It's going to be delicious. I'm going to let y'all taste a piece. I'm going to let that cheesecake sit in the refrigerator for let's see, how long I'm going to let this thing sit in the refrigerator. We're going to let it sit in the refrigerator for a couple of minutes, or maybe an hour, until the cheesecake hardens up. The goal is the filling, we want the filling to harden up. Once the filling harden up and the crust harden up, you should be prepared to eat. Within a couple of hours, I would say, maybe so, you should be prepared to eat. Thank you all for participating in this part of our activity. I think everyone should grab them a Jello classic cheesecake and put it together just as I did. You all, thank you and have a great day. But do remember, when making this cheesecake, please do follow all instructions. We just don't have to use regular sugar. We can always go with Splendor, and when we're using butter, we can always go with the butter that's not salted. It makes for healthy living and healthy eating habits. You all enjoy. Have a great day.